that's what we want to talk about, an article that you put out recently where you did kind of the deep dive into how Penn State's offense might change with the differences that they have in the backfield. One is that you have Drew Allar in there instead of Sean Clifford, different kind of quarterback. And even though the running backs are the same guys, these are now veterans. They're not the unproven guys that going into the season you didn't know what you had. Let's start with Drew Allar. And before we get to how the offense might change with him in there, let's just talk about his traits themselves. How is Drew Allar a different quarterback than Sean Clifford?
Clifford, obviously, he excelled in many things, and, you'll never hear a bad word about him out of my mouth, but arm strength probably wasn't a strong suit of his. So that limits you from a play calling standpoint at times. You can't outthrow coverage at times, and you can't take advantage of the entire field. So Drew Allar obviously possesses a rocket ship attached to his shoulder, as we say. And so that's the number one thing. And then we can get into later as well as his vision, his ability to see the field and get through reads. The popular word now is processing. All the Twitter scouts like to throw that one around, talk about how well a quarterback processes. And last year he put some things on tape that shows that that's definitely also a strength of his.
Now, you've looked at some of the tapes of what Mike Yurcich has done in the past, especially with his Oklahoma State teams. Those were some interesting offenses. What is it we might expect to see differently now with Drew Allar in there instead of Sean Clifford?
The first thing I touch on in the article is wide splits. Anyone that watched Tennessee or watched any Josh Heupel or Art Briles offense in the past knows that they like to align their receivers almost on the sideline. Sometimes they'll split the difference between the numbers in the sideline, but it really stretches the field out, and it looks unorthodox from a viewer's perspective. It almost seems as if they're lined up out of bounds or something, but it puts tremendous stress on a defense. And the main thing is that it creates natural one-on-one matchups. So what does that mean? Even if you're playing zone, it doesn't matter. You could have cover 3, 4, 6, any coverage in the book called, but when there's only one defensive back, within 20-yard radius of a receiver, it's safe to assume that, it's a one-on-one matchup.
You also, in the article, I found interesting, could you tell us about the pure progression passing concept and how Drew Allar fits in that?
There's a couple different ways that passing concepts are designed. So a popular way is that you have, say you're in a 2-by-2 formation, so 2 eligible receivers on both sides of the ball. You can have kind of a mirrored concept, so say a slant and a flat going on both sides. Quarterback will just pick a side. That's referred to as pick a side read. That can be based on, matchups, can be based on coverage, really whatever the quarterback and the offensive staff feels comfortable with. But that limits you in a way. You only have 2 routes really in your progression, but pure progressions, and Penn State did a little bit of this, but it certainly wasn't the heart and soul of their passing attack. But they'll have a concept that is read completely from left to right. So like you're reading a book or reading a book oppositely. You could have a fade in and out starting on the right, and then something like a drive concept, like a dig and a drag coming across the backside. So you'll start on the front and your read just scans across the field. It's based on the philosophy that, okay, if the first read is taken away, that's probably because they did something that will open up the second read. If the second read is taken away, it's likely because they did something that will open up the third read. So that's kind of the philosophy behind the pure progression.
It's an interesting concept you brought up then with the running backs, which a year ago, both Nick Singleton, Kaytron Allen, true freshmen, nobody really, as highly regarded as they were, no one really knew what you were getting with the two of them at the start of the season. Now, another year in the program, obviously very talented, but now you have these two guys, they're veterans now. This is their second year in. What are we going to see different from them?
Well, hopefully they're on the field at the same time. I think that's what everybody wants. And I think I was watching the Adam Brenneman show, and I can't remember if it was the Nick Singleton or the Kaytron Allen interview, but one of them let the cat out of the bag that there is a 21 personnel package that has been installed throughout camp. So that's exciting. That means it definitely was a point of focus to get those two on the field at the same time. As for what they can do, we saw a clip during spring ball, or maybe it was camp, where they were working kind of a triple option RPO type look. That's something that, is easy install. They kind of have run it before, but now they're doing it in a way that involves the two backs. And as for what Yurcich did at Oklahoma State, it's a lot of, okay, we'll put this guy in, we'll put one of the backs in motion, have a run going down the middle. If a backer flies out with the screen, hand it off. If not, we can throw the screen. So many ways to skin a cat when you have two backs, but the biggest thing is that they both pose a threat to carry the ball at the same time. The term pick your poison is thrown around a lot, and that's kind of what you got to force defenses to do.
One of the things I've been wondering about, you didn't see the running backs in the passing game so much last year. Is that another thing that you think we might see differently now that it's another year in the program for the two young running backs?
To be honest with you, I don't think route running is particularly a strength of either one of them. I mean, unless you got to keep in mind they were true freshmen last year, so you don't expect that to be developed right away. But I think the bones and the soul of their passing game will be in the flats, but just ways to get them the ball on the perimeter. That's pretty much a glorified run, but obviously you do have to still catch the ball.